All right, team. So we're prepared to head up on the roof. I have all my tools laid out. So real quick, we'll just review what we've got here. I've got my impact driver for putting in screws. If we were to use nails as well, you're gonna wanna bring a hammer and a pry bar. We need however many roof anchors we're gonna be using. We need our caulking gun with clear patch caulking so that we can patch the holes after we're done. We need our screws and or nails, and we need our safety rope. Now I'm already wearing the harness, my tether, and my rope grab. So let's head up onto the roof and get this going. Okay, now something to think about, very important. If you're the first person up, you don't have any safety line as you're coming up onto this roof. So what we're gonna be looking for is to decide where we would wanna climb. The safest location is a valley, because as we'll show you up there, you can safely walk up a valley and grab on with your feet on either side and make it up with quite decent friction. You're gonna have something to hold up against. Another alternative, if you don't have a valley available, you could look for a dormer, because you can grab onto the fascia board and the gutter and pull yourself up that way. Or if it's too steep and there's no other way, then we'll use different techniques like a throw line or a ladder hook, which we would maybe toss up. But what you mostly want to avoid is climbing straight up a big open face that is quite steeply pitched, because there's going to be a lot of space for you to fall and nothing to grab onto. So here we've chosen this valley, and that's why we're climbing up this way. So with my tools, I need to make sure I have one hand available for the ladder. So I'm either going to do a couple trips, or if I can hold it all in one hand, which I can, then I'll go like this. Okay, I'm back to the top of my ladder, and the first thing I want to do is take all of my tools down and place them in front of me. This way, when I disembark from the ladder, I will be nice and stable. I won't have different weights on my body pulling me to different directions. What I like to do is place the tools directly in front of the ladder so they're supported by it and they're not going to slide down. And then I'll climb up. And this is what we're talking about with the valley. So see, if I'm stepping forward off of my ladder, I would push off this way. But one problem I'm going to have is I have to fight quite a lot for my balance and for my control. This type of ascent is going to be much more slippery, especially on a steeper pitch. So ideally what we want to do is place our ladder close to one of these valleys like this one, where you can actually step to either side. And on here, I have a way easier time walking, much more stable, way better supported. And this is the ideal place to climb. Now, just as well, if you don't have a valley like this, another option for you is to try and aim for one of these dormers. So over here, if this was decently close to my ladder, as I climb up, I would push off my ladder and then grab onto the fascia board here, so I can pull myself up the roof with this. Then I can grab onto the gutter and keep pulling myself that way. I would probably aim to tie my equipment somewhere to myself on a waist loop or something, so that way my hands would be free for clambering around. And finally, another thing to look out for when you're walking around on this metal flashing, the places where you want to place your feet is on either side, but never directly on the flashing, for two reasons. The first, it's going to be quite slippery, obviously. And the next, sometimes when the roofers install this stuff, there's going to be a bit of an air gap between the flashing and the actual valley itself where the plywood is. And if there's that gap, the nails that are holding the metal flashing down might rip out when you put too much weight on it. So you could actually cause damage to this area. It's much better to just try to stay wide around it, and it's going to be better for your positioning. So now I'm on my roof, walking safely. I'll just grab my tools over here. So there's my bucket. There's the rope. Clamber over to where I need it. And let's go install our roof anchor. Okay, now that we're up on the roof, we just need to find a safe place to place our tools so that we can do our work. What I like to look for is these vents. If it's quite windy, you need to think about the wind pushing over your buckets. So maybe what you'll want to do is actually bungee cord around a pipe vent, like this one down here. Or you could place it in one of the flatter areas, if there is something like that. Here we are on the roof, ready to install our anchor. This is what we're going to be hanging off of and working with as we're clambering around the rope, clambering around the roof, getting to the gutter. And you have to think about a couple things. First step is, where do we place this thing? So what we need to think about is a couple hazards. We have our fall hazard and also the swing hazard. So if I were to place my anchor all the way over there, and then I was working on the gutter all the way over there, my rope would be so long that if I fall, my body would swing the whole length of the gutter and probably on the way hit a car, a wall, a window, something. I would hit stuff and it wouldn't really protect me. So what we need to do is place these far enough apart. And generally, the angle would be like 35 feet. So this size of roof right here where we are working now, I would place one anchor in the middle, and this would let me do both sides. And as we go around the house, I would probably place a couple more in different locations. We want to plan out how we can use these most effectively, so we're not drilling too many holes in the shingles and also not using too many anchors that we don't need to. For more information on how to set your angles correctly, please take a look at the charts attached below. It shows you some instructions from the Guardian, the manufacturer of these things. They tell you approximately, compared to like how long the roof is, how big your swing hazard would be. So it's very important to take that into account and to think about it. Ideally, what you want is that if you were to fall, you wouldn't drop much more than 1 or 2 feet from the rope itself swinging. And that's a good rule to go by. Now, up on the roof itself, where do we actually place this thing? The roof is made with rafters from the framing. There's going to be wooden rafters all the way along. Over top of that, they put plywood sheeting, and then they put tar paper, and then the shingles. So what we need to install this on is the rafter itself. If you put it anywhere that isn't a rafter, the roof is only about this thick, and the screw or nail is actually 3 inches long. So it won't be biting the whole thing. And actually with these ones, for example, you can see there's a smooth shank at the top. So there's a chance you wouldn't be holding on to anything at all. We want to make sure we find a rafter. How do we find a rafter? Spread your body out nice and wide so that the weight of your foot or your knee isn't affecting the noise, and start banging on the roof until you find a stud. The way that you tell the difference, when there isn't a stud, it will sound hollow. When there is a stud, it will sound deep. It'll be a thud versus a drum type noise. And I like to stay away from the area that I'm knocking on to give myself space. Also, I'm going to knock with my hand lower than the peak, because up here you have rafters and shingles and these cross beams all coming together. You might not be able to tell. The whole thing all the way along will sound solid. So you gotta go a little bit lower down. We're now double checking that our anchor is in the right place. I'm just gonna check with my hammer one more time. So this sounds hollow here, and that is a stud for sure. Okay. Now once you're driving in some nails, and check that you're not using the same nails that you used at the last job. Throw these out, don't keep using the same screws and nails. And just line it up and drive it in. As a final check, as you're driving in these nails, and to tell you the truth, I don't get it right every time. If it feels like it's resisting you and you're having a hard time driving the nail down, you're probably on a stud. And if it's going in very quickly after the first inch or so, then you've probably missed. These anchors are quite nice because they have 3 holes on their pattern, so you can have a couple different angles. Sometimes the studs are quite thin. This gives you a bit of a couple tries, but this is the sound that we want. You see how it's not popping back up, so that is on a stud. It is solid, it is good to go. After I do a couple on one side, I'll also want to do a couple on the other. Let's slam these down. And what we're looking to do is place 5 on each end. That's the manufacturer recommended amount. If you don't use enough nails or enough screws, the anchor is not going to hold a 5,000 pound shock load, which is what it needs to be able to hold up to. So if you don't use enough anchors, there's a high likelihood that your nails are going to rip out after you do this. My favorite go-to is actually the impact driver with these deck screws, because they're a lot easier to remove after you're done working with them. And you can also tell using the ratchet on the impact driver if you actually hit the stud or not. That's a good noise right there. That's what we want. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. One more on this side. Now we go to the other side, and we need 4 more on here. All right, so that's 5 screws and nails on either side, and we are finally ready to clip in our rope. Our rope is going to have the same 2-way locking carabiner as our tether did. So I'll just uncoil this, toss it down, hook it on, and now we'll use our rope grab. The rope grab that we had attached to our harness so long ago comes off. And the way this installs, when you look in here, you're going to have a little up arrow with the word up right next to it. In here, you're going to have this locking jaw that articulates and moves. This is what actually stops the rope from sliding. You're going to have this little wheel, and then there's also right in the middle this little retaining clip. This little metal flap slides up and down along here to prevent you from opening and closing this thing. Then on this side, you have a threaded nut, and finally a locking pin over here. So just to load up my rope in here, I like to usually actually hold it towards myself, but for the video, here you guys go. I like to pull on the ring to make sure that the catch is away from me. I slide the rope in here, making sure that the top of the rope is pointed towards the up arrow. Close this down. And if it's not closing, there's a chance that this little metal catch plate in the middle is blocking you. So make sure to slide that out of the way. Screw this in to the threaded insert, and then close the lock. And now I'm safe, I'm hooked up, and if I go and take a fall, my rope will catch me. And do check out how long your tether is, because it's important to know how far you can actually go before you're in danger. So here, I wouldn't want my rope too far where I would maybe fall into the gutter. Now, if you need to move around and adjust, it's simply a matter of holding this up and sliding it down. It might even be a bad idea to put your fingers through the ring, so just hold on the outside here, adjust it to the level that you need it at, get your work done. And it's not a bad thing to hold onto the rope down here for extra support if you need it. So there we go. That is your roof anchor and tether. A couple little details: avoid dragging it across the roof too much. It may tear the shingles. It also can catch sometimes around the corners of the shingles, especially on these ones here with the roof. The rope tends to sometimes catch underneath and actually snap these things off. Not so much on this roof because everything's flush, but it really depends on the types of shingles that the client has. So watch out for where your roof is, where your rope is, and watch out for how this is dragging along and affecting things. Now with this tether, we're able to work on this side as well as on the shady side here. And if I am moving over, I will probably pull my rope across as well and just toss it down that way. It's not a bad thing to toss your rope down. Sometimes I like to keep it actually up here on the roof with me so it's not dragging on the ground and maybe hitting windows or something. But if you have a whole bunch of rope up here on the roof with you, you have to be careful about where you're stepping because the rope will roll under your feet. And there's a chance that you could slip and fall just from your own safety line, which would be kind of funny. It would be a bad way to go. We've done everything we need to do. We are ready to pack up our gear. I'm gonna start by taking my tether off, and I'll just toss off my rope grab over here, take off the nut, and my little clip is in the way. Push that out. Rope grab is off. Clip it to my chest over here. I'm gonna put the rope away. I'll just coil that up. Now it's anchor time. To remove the anchor, we need a pry bar if we use nails, and the impact driver if we use screws. Here for demonstration purposes, we used both. So I'm going to start with my impact driver screws, rip them out. And now for the nails. When you're pulling nails, you have to think about not losing traction and falling as you're doing it. The pry bar makes this job quite a lot easier. You can jam it in underneath your anchor, loosen the nail a little bit, and then on your pry bar there's this little cutout here for nail pulling. I just slide that on and pull. One just safety concern as I'm doing this, I'm not pulling and leaning away from the roof. If I need to put any torque that way, I will actually just hammer on it with my hand like this. So this way my body isn't leaning in a dangerous direction. You can also use a hammer if you don't have a pry bar available, if for some reason you forgot it. So the hammer that you use to install the nails, you can use that. Same deal, loosen the nail so that you can get the head. Clap it under, stick it underneath. And with the nail secured in the nail pulling area, you're just gonna hold on to the handle like this and whack at it this way to pull it out. And so this is as opposed to just like torquing back on it, because when the nail goes, you might fall with the hammer that way, which would be bad. Finally, when our anchor is pulled out, we're gonna have all of these screw holes left over, and it's important not to leave these open because you could have leaks and you could have insurance claims. So to avoid insurance claims, we're gonna bring some weatherproof roof patching, caulking, and this is a fresh tube, so we'll have to open it up. I like to get the plastic kind, but you can get these with paper containers as well. And on here, you've just got to remove the cap, break the seal. On your caulking gun, there's a couple points. There's your cutter for the spout, and this is the poker for the seal. So we're just going to shove the poker in there, get it open. We're gonna put the spout back on. And this one, the hole in the end of the spout is quite small. So I'm also gonna grab my cutter, just put the spout in there and clip the end off. There we go. Hook that on, push this in, and squeeze the trigger. Little dab there, little dab there, dab, 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 and press the button here to release so there's no more caulking coming out. I'm just going to push it in just enough that my caulking gun is not going to fall apart. And final little trick, I like to put a little bit of saliva on my fingers and flatten this out. If you get your fingers wet, the silicone won't stick to your hands. There we go, my fingers are wet. Just flatten these things, make them all looking nice. There we go. Finally, just tack it up, load everything into your bucket, take it back down to the truck, and your job is done. So that's using roof anchors, your fall protection system. If you have any questions, comment below. Also, make sure to read the diagrams and attachments. We have some PDF documents showing how to set up your fall protection properly to mitigate the swing hazard. We also have a couple attachments showing you how the roof is built so that you can understand where the rafters are and how all of that construction comes together. It's the more you know about the roofing, the better you can also answer questions from your customer. And that's all. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.